Hello, this is Todd Siegel, Psychic Detective, and you are listening to The Psychic Zone. Anyway, so I've asked people on my Facebook page if they have some questions for me tonight about general topics. So I'm going to talk about some of those. It seems like everybody is concerned about the future. And my last podcast dealt with some of the future calamities or possible calamities that might be coming up. A lot of people want to know about next year's election, which I don't see an election. I don't really see it coming about, and it's very strange. Yes, I have predicted quite a few elections, and but I get a very, very strange feeling about next year. To be more specific, I feel like the sitting president actually could keep going on, honestly, even at his age. So, what could also alter the election could be wartime, which I've been saying for, I think, over 10 years about 2024. I felt there could be a world war, or there could be a war in the Middle East, which would be very serious. But what happens when we throw around predictions like this and they don't come true? Does that mean that they're just bogus, or do they have some kind of relevance? From my perspective, even when I'm working on a case or if I'm working with a client, everything has relevance. Everything. It might not mean something at the time, but we put it on the back burner or we write it down. But somewhere that information might come true. A lot of people are worried about another virus coming. And I had a vision the other day of one that was quite severe. Something of an Ebola category where people are wearing hazmat suits. But now that the weapon has been installed, and I say weapon because, it wasn't just an accident. Now that they know that they can control the population with an illness, it's very possible it'll come about. And they can use it. Do I see a real specific time as far as something like that? March comes to mind, so we'll keep an eye on that month. And remember, this is just my opinion. This is not based on fact. Could this thing take hold of the population? I think it will be restrained, and I think it will only, affect a limited amount of people. And I think it's just going to be kind of like a shot across the bow, a warning sign. It's also, what is the most effective way to control the population? Health. Now, it's interesting. We, especially in this country, we seem to have a incredible amount of faith in the healthcare, in the system. Because I see people let themselves go. And we have very little knowledge growing up in this country about how to take care of our own health, which in other countries, it's the first learning that goes on. But here, what do you do when you're sick? You go to the doctor. And I know I spent a lot of time out in the woods and on the prairie and running a farm and planting food and living on, living off the land and researching, healing plants, healing trees, healing things. And it really is just, it's disheartening to see how younger people don't know these things. And these should be common knowledge. They should be taught day one with our society. And we don't do that. Anyway, so I tend to see people just let themselves go, you know. Don't worry, if my heart clogs up, they can fix it for me, that kind of attitude. And there's also wonderful discoveries as far as learning about life when you live off the land and when you learn how to do for yourself. I'm looking at all these questions on Facebook that people are asking me. The celebrities do not interest me. People. I have one person who asked me, keep telling us you feel that a disaster is coming. Can you be more specific? Well, in 2024, I had a very, very hardline feeling that we were going to be in a war, specifically Middle East. One country of interest was Iran to me. And that's a disaster. And then the virus I was talking about is another disaster. Do I feel it could affect everybody? There's a possibility there. But I think most intuitive people I've spoken to, psychics and mediums, probably in the past year or so, all agree that this weapon is coming. The health weapon. And it's a control thing. It's to control all of us. And so that's enough as far as catastrophes. People are asking about, I haven't watched the news in a long time, but the flood in Libya killed thousands. Do you foresee any other catastrophic events in the next year? I do see a pretty significant volcano. I'm getting the Pacific region. Not in America, but overseas somewhere. So that is very possible. What's the significance of that? Well, volcanoes control our weather across the world. Thinking of weather, I feel that the Midwest this year could be hard hit with winter, which is not unusual, but I feel a pretty long winter for them going into March, April, even May. Some of my predictions about the weather this year were actually accurate. One of them was that I talked about snow in June. I think June. And that did happen out in the, towards the Pacific, out in the Northwest. Reports of snow in some cities around June. So that's catastrophic events. So going back to the election, I feel the sitting president could actually extend his term, is what I'm feeling. I'm not getting any other faces right now. Even scarier, I feel both sides of the spectrum are going to be in agreement with each other. There's absolutely no push for any. It's almost like anybody who runs will be kind of pushed out of the way. Let's see, I've got some interesting questions though. I think some of these people didn't listen to my last podcast where I was talking about 2024 and the economy. And Ronnie asks, will mortgage interest rates lower before the end of the year? Do you see another housing crash or recession? I'm no. As far as interest rates lowering, no. I don't see that. I feel they're going to actually go quite high. And even before January. Housing crash. Well, it's not really a housing crash that I'm seeing. It's the economy and people not being able to afford food on their table after they pay rent. I can see that more than half of their income is going to be paying rent, which just keeps going higher and higher. And as far as a crash, no. But funny enough, the hardest impacted areas are going to be the wealthy areas. The wealthy housing markets will slow down in a big way. Let me see what other questions I have. Cultural changes, dealing with homeownership these days, multi-generational house. Well, this has already become true. People are sharing apartments with each other. It's becoming the new 60s with everybody kind of living together, except there's no meditation parties going on or flower parties. It's kind of, people are hunkering down. And let me see. I'm just looking at questions here. Now, this is a very interesting question from Glenda. I appreciate it. Do you take your knowledge with you when you die? I guess the question that I might ask in return is, do we take our knowledge with us when we're born? And I'm not talking about the knowledge in this life. I'm talking about the knowledge that's in our soul, that's in our spirit. If you are lucky enough to tap into that knowledge while you're living right now, you are way ahead of the game. The knowledge that we take when we're here is of the heart. That is the very important knowledge that we have. And being a medium and reading people on the other side, the most important thing in their lives has to do with the heart. The heart experiences. the heart knowledge, you know. If you have somebody close to you right now who inspires you and who you share your heart with, it's very, very important knowledge. Not for this life, but for other lives too. And the way the world's working right now, you never know how long your time is. And it's very important to go with your heart. Definitely go with your heart. Don't let your heart be stuck. Go with it. And truthfully, that's the most important thing to have in your life right now, besides extra canned food in your cabinet and all that stuff. Forget all that stuff. What's important is to follow your heart. And those are the messages that I get from the dead all the time. You know? And it's interesting when I'm working with a client with somebody who's 90 years old versus somebody who might be in a hospital when they're in their 30s and they know they're going to die. The 90-year-old definitely has an experience with the heart. And I'm not saying the 30-year-old doesn't, but there's an appreciation when you get older, when you lose your ability to maybe walk, when you lose your ability to, all your friends have died. There's an appreciation of the heart there. And that knowledge keeps growing throughout our lives. Although some people close off their heart and they're feeling that they don't need that knowledge. You need that knowledge more than you need other things. You need your heart. You know, if you pray to God, if you are religious, that's all heart knowledge there. You know, and that's the knowledge we need to survive when we pass and when we come back. You know, it's very interesting. I have done some public speaking before, and all of those things went really, really well. And one group was a near-death experience group, and some of the others were, I guess they were like spiritual groups, that kind of thing. People into mediumship, and they wanted to hear about my work. I've never seen so many mouths open. They were just captivated. They absolutely could not believe what I do every day. And it's hard work. But there's so much variety in what I do from one moment to another. I can go from a relationship issue going on with somebody, and then the next minute, there's a murder case. But one time I was having a talk in front of a group, and we were talking about past lives and memories and stuff like that. And I looked at the people and I said, I would like you all to recall what your earliest memory was growing up. How far back can you go? And I was amazed. Some people could go back to 2 years when they were 2 years old. Some could go back even a little bit earlier, those memories. And it really brought a lot of giggles to everybody and to think back. And then I asked a question. I said, now here's your other question. What were you doing before you were born? And the looks were pretty amazing. Because I read every person there psychically and got information from them. So some would, answer, well, I wasn't born. I don't know. They had information there, information inside of them. I'm 1,000% certain that we lived before. I think if you're a medium out there or psychic, you understand this. This, as Glenda put it, this knowledge. Everybody thinks that when we die, we see our family, we see our pets, see our uncles and aunts. Sometimes you don't. But think about this as well. What about the parents that were your parents before this life? Were they all human form? That puts it into a different perspective. I'm talking, can we go into animal form? Yeah, I believe so. Can we go into alien form? Yes, I do know this. But we've had lives before, but past lives aren't exactly what you think they are. They aren't always on the physical level. Do you know what I mean? What I'm talking about is we can live other lives in spirit form. Sometimes people will come to me and say, well, are these past life experiences that I'm having right now? Sometimes they are, but we also have other spirits that are coming into our space that lived a long time ago who are influencing our lives. I've gone through so much of this throughout my life. I've never felt a part of this life. Never. Because I feel so many lives in one. And I can name all the different ones. The other day, actually, I was down at a parking lot. And I got off my bike for a second. I was on my motorcycle. And I saw a whole bunch of, it must have been a group of people driving old cars, Model A's, 1920s and earlier, some of these cars. And years ago, I had a dream of a life that I lived. I could describe everything down to the car. I drew the car out. This was before internet, so I drew it on paper. It wasn't until internet many years later that I realized that that was a real model car, pre-1930, And I saw that car the other day. among those beautiful antiques that were all parked in front of this restaurant. So I saw myself as an old man. I could smell the streets. The streets had horse manure on them. It smelled like horse manure and tar. Every vivid memory I had from that place, I had this vision recurring in my 20s. Now, was that a past life that I lived? Or was it a spirit that was engaging with me? Was I reading that spirit? That was back in California, so I must have been about 22, something like that. That dream kept coming on, but it was strong, and that was actually that life took place in California. But after 22, I moved to Massachusetts, and I never went back. But we cannot see the eternal in this life. We can't. But there's many practices available to us to actually see what it is like before this life, what it is like after this life. Time is the real secret when it comes to psychic work and mediumship and interpreting our abilities. See, a lot of people think that we just get all the answers right up front. What we're doing is interpreting information that comes to us. Okay? Time it's a circle. It's not going from beginning till end. It's going from end to beginning and back around again, and it's going on a track, kind of like the yin yang symbol, Like time is going to the left and it's going to the right. And that's the way I see time. A lot of people, if they saw what I saw when I'm doing psychic work, might feel very disturbed. Honestly, they might have to check into a clinic of some sort and get some medicine, because it's pretty powerful. And I was talking about the people who go through past or traumatic, regression and near-death experiences is what I'm trying to say. And I've actually spoken to some of those people in readings who the visions and the psychic abilities came on too strong. Some of them were in the hospital, some had heart transplants, some of them, some of those events could be PTSD, But the problem is sometimes with PTSD is you're not working in a good way psychically. You have to be very blank, So it's very important to go through therapy and make things right before you do psychic work and after you start doing it. It's very hard emotionally to take. You know what I mean? So somebody with a delicate system, let's say post-traumatic stress or this and that, and then they start coming into abilities, it could make things worse for them. It could make things worse. I know. I in my 30s had terrible anxiety. I didn't know where it was coming from. I didn't take pills or anything. I worked a farm. I did very heavy, hard, laborious work, which helped, you know. And when I discovered my psychic abilities, um, at first it was pretty cool. But then I started reading people with problems, and those problems affected me physically. I will still, I will still get that to this day when I do a reading. But I'm able to detach myself from it, you know. I remember I was doing a reading just the other day about somebody, and they asked me to read them and what was going on with them, and like, ow, I'm just like, ow, my stomach hurt. I mean, really bad. Well, it ended up true. This person had some kind of a wound or something to their stomach, which I don't know. That has to be repaired. So when you come into psychic abilities, you've got to be very careful. Do I think everybody can learn how to do psychic abilities? Well, it's kind of like a drawing class. You know, you take 10 students out of a drawing class, only 2 of those students have an incredible natural ability to draw. It comes to them like they've never had a lesson before. And the rest can learn how to draw. But it takes a lot of time. And there's some that should take up fishing because they just won't be able to draw, you know. So when I was younger, I had a very good childhood. I had a very caring mom. My father was very caring. My sister was a pain in the butt. We're very close now, though. But I had a good childhood. But I was traumatized by fear. And I remember I would just sit there in a room and just stare and stare. And my grandmother was like, "What are you looking at?" And when I think back to it, it was lots of information was coming to me, a ton of information. I didn't know how to interpret it. And now that I look back on my childhood, I really feel that I just didn't know what to do with it. I saw things, and it was just a part of me. And no, I don't think it was very cool. I just wanted to enjoy life like the other kids. I was often around other boys and girls that were similar to me. You know. Now trust me, I wasn't the the kid on the sand that you'd kick sand at or something like that. I was a boy. I was a hiker, fisherman, you know, very good tennis player. I skied fantastically. I surfed. I was actually in the ASP in my teens, which is the Association of Surfing Professionals, where I toured Hawaii and also California. I surfed in many competitions. I won 2 first place surfing prizes in the Malibu Classic. Yeah, me. So I was quite an accomplished surfer. I was a skateboarder. Um, Skateboarded with some pretty well-known no well-known names back then. So I was definitely a boy. I wasn't kind of a geek, so to speak, you know, but I was very different inward. It's really strange as I've come into contact with some of my old friends recently. Um, One was a guy who grew up uh, down the street from me. We were very good friends, and he recently contacted me. And it's so strange is I wonder when they find out what I do. Now I'm so exposed out there that all these, old childhood friends are coming forward. And you know what they told me? They're like, we're not surprised you're doing this. And I'm like, really? They said, we knew something was different about you when you were younger. And so it's kind of interesting. I do think you have to have this ability to begin with, to tell you the truth. I'm not saying don't buy somebody's book on how to expand your intuitive abilities and this and that. And I will try the best I can to help people to enhance those abilities. The first thing is you need a blank mind. Don't have an opinion. It's like getting married for a guy. Don't have an opinion. Don't have an opinion. Don't say anything. Be agreeable. So that's very important, to keep a blank mind. I do kind of go into a trance, I will say that. Especially when I'm dealing with the other side and spirits on the other side, something happens to me. I just sort of sit there. And I'm basically seeing the information, and I have to interpret it to the person I'm talking to. Yeah, I am kind of selective of what I say to the client. I have to be careful, you know. It's not that I'm careful about, oh, well, this might be wrong information. No, I am trying to be a help to them. And, I had one client that asked me a question. And it is something that I see that's kind of weird. They said they saw their mom or somebody who passed away on the other side, and she looked like she was yelling at them, like she was angry. And it disturbed them. I have seen this before. But I can tell you they're not angry. I think it has to do with their ability to communicate to us. And what appears to us as negative. And that's the only way I can describe that, but I know exactly what they're talking about. I've seen this in a lot of readings. I've also felt people from the other side, who were deceased family of somebody, and they came through as different looking entities to me. They look different, One common thing is sometimes people go back to, or they give me a visual of when they looked their best, like when they're younger. or they show me something that was significant in their life, like if they were a war veteran and that impacted their life the most, even though they became an insurance salesman for the rest of their lives, or maybe just retired. That time in the military leaves a life impact on them. So oftentimes they will show me a picture of something in that person's house, like them in uniform or on a ship or something like that. That's how the dead give me messages. A lot of times it is symbolic. The other part of the time, it is verbal, or they're talking through me. But I can't just pick up a phone from heaven and call good old dad for you. It doesn't work that way. They connect with me. I don't connect with them. So going back to the questions on this Facebook post, let me see what we got here. Well, thank you, Dorothea, for calling me gifted. I don't feel gifted. I just feel like I have a job. And for some reason, and I'm not boasting about it, but I never realized I could be the psychic that I am today. Absolutely not, because when you understand psychic work, you know that you're not perfect. Okay? It's not about being perfect. It's not about being right all the time. That's what people don't understand. It's information, visually, smell, hearing, feelings, all the different senses. But I'm amazed. I'm absolutely amazed at what I've done so far and all the work I've done. I found 2 missing dogs last week on the same day. I mean, these dogs would have been dead if I didn't help. The clues led to them being found. How many have I found? It's in the hundreds. My calculation is, there's going to be, maybe a dozen per year, and that's going back over 20 years, so it's going to be a lot. And some of these people have actually told me that years later their dog passed away. I'm glad you could help our dog while he was alive, but he passed from old age, But boy, the time thing really just is crazy. People had children because of me. No, I was not their donor. That came out wrong. I made predictions about people who were having trouble having their children what to do, or they were wondering when their child would be born. So I gave predictions about that. And now to see them as young adults makes me feel really, really old. Really old. Don has a question. What are signs that spirits are around us or visiting us? Well, there's a couple ways to go about this. First of all, sit somewhere quiet and open your mind. And just get a sense. Now remember, spirits visit us not always the same way. It doesn't come as, oh, this is definitely a person in this room. Nope. But sometimes, yes, it does. And it often will cause some dizziness with me, and I'll have to sit down. When I go into a very haunted place, it makes me dizzy. And sometimes when I'm doing a reading and this spirit connects with me in the reading, it will make me dizzy too. I remember this man, his wife was coming through. This was about a year ago. And I was sitting at a table with him, and I was doing the reading, and I had to take my hand and catch myself on the chair because the dizziness was overwhelming to me. It's almost like vertigo. And it was coming because his wife was there strongly. The other signs are not what you think they are. They're going to be very, very subtle. Now, of course, I talk to people who have things go missing, jewelry goes missing, things around the house that are not in the same place that they were. A little song on the song will come up with that person's name or something. You'll see an animal outside looking at you through the window. Animals are very good to have in your house because they detect spirit, the presence of a spirit. Depending on the animal, cats, dogs. If there's a spirit around, they will sense them. They're naturally intuitive. Now, if you have a young child in the house, well, you got a couple of issues going on. First of all, they are natural receivers to psychic information and to the dead. The other problem is they become a Wi-Fi. They become a magnifier. So they magnify and accelerate spirits in the house, or spirits that might have been dormant in the house. I've heard so many stories of people. They've lived in this house. They just found somebody they loved. They get married. And then they have their first child in the house. And then all of a sudden they call Todd. Todd, we keep hearing a knocking upstairs. We keep feeling a presence. And one night we saw a light in our house walking through. Why all of a sudden? Well, you've got a very open, powerful antenna in your house now. This new life, who is a natural medium, natural clairvoyant, who's just recovering from their past life, So, kids, pets, very intuitive. And pretty much all pets. But every psychic and medium interprets information differently, Oh, look, if I went with a bunch of psychics and we went for a vacation on the beach, on a beach trip, every single one of them is going to have a different interpretation of that beach scene. There's going to be some saying, oh, that sounds too hot. I can't stand this stuff. Or, you know, geez, it's such a far walk down to the restaurant, to go get a water. Or there's some you'll say, oh, the sky is beautiful blue. No, it isn't. There's some overcast. It's like a haze there. So, as psychics and mediums, we are humans. So, we may not interpret everything as happy. We may not, we are all our personalities, you know. Mostly in this work, we cannot use our imagination or our emotions, and we don't. Although there are some who give the illusion of being psychic who have to use tactics to make themselves believable. And they have to say things like, you're going to have a very painful death, or this is going to happen to you, or you're being followed by a very evil spirit. If you pay me $1,000, I can get rid of it for you. A lot of illusionists out there. And yes, they keep doing it. And the more I do this work, the more I don't know crap. I don't have a good understanding of what happens when we die, because it is so intense and it is so it's something that we cannot conceive of. So I have to read people on the other side, and I get different visions of what death is like. There's no way to put it into a mold, I can tell you this, if somebody passed recently that they're not having a problem on the other side. The problem is life, coping with this life. If you have a lot of fear, it's very important to detach from this life a little bit. You're too much in your reality, too much. Because all it takes is your heart to stop, and you're gone. It's pretty simple. People whose hearts have stopped often report incredible experiences on the other side. Within a few seconds' time, these experiences are almost equal to 20 years of time, It's very interesting about like wormholes in space. It's a very good analogy of what it's like in the unconscious world, the world that we do not see. The world we do not see is massive in every part of that word. And so, I have a lot of, I have a lot of questions here. I find the most interesting right now is Renee. She says this might be a strange question, but I want to know if criminals and people who commit atrocities against other humans have spirit guides. I'm sure they probably do, and probably other lower energies influencing them at the same time. Wow. That's a very cool question. There's so much on that I already get. Um, a lot of the criminals that are doing these crimes, to me, have an undeveloped mind. A very undeveloped mind. They're almost like children in a way. They're just not all there. I don't know if they all have spirit guides. Are there evil spirit guides out there? Yeah. I want to say yes. They're stuck in their sickness. And yes, it does go in their soul. And when they die, they don't become anything, really. Nothing. I feel they're recycled. But you were talking about probably have lower energies influencing them at the same time. I won't deny that, yes. They probably do have some negative energies influencing them, yes. So it's important for you to, I know it sounds strange, but to have a good life. To be on the right track, to be in the positive, to be in a good frame of mind. You don't have to be a positive person. To be in a stable frame of mind. If you are not in a good frame of mind, then these negative influences can take hold of you. You know? And unfortunately, we've got a society that's taken on these negatives, this dark side. And it's pretty scary how many, you know. What I'm thinking about is the drug issue that we have in this country, which is the worst I've ever seen it. Because I'm working on these crime cases all the time with it. I just worked on another one of an 18-year-old who was murdered. I won't say where, mention names, but done by gangs and drug trades. The drugs are so big and lucrative and go up to higher up people. I'm sure you all know that. What's very frustrating is that the authorities are turning a blind eye to this stuff. That's what I do not understand. There is so much trafficking and drugs out there, and we are not doing anything about it. And these people are rich. They get a lot of money. But they can also pick and choose who should live and who shouldn't. They are very, and this goes back to Renee's question, they are empty. No conscience. It's almost like I don't even know if they have a spirit guide. I would say they're basically an empty shell operating on bad intentions, you know? When I read them, it's very scary. But you know what? People don't know. Is a lot of these criminals are psychic too. So I have to protect myself and be careful because they can read what I'm doing. Oh, sure, you don't have to be a, happy, joyful little spiritual buttercup to be a psychic. You can be a downright evil, nasty person, and you can be very psychic. Um, I'm gonna look at some of these things, or some of these questions are interesting. Um, I'll have to ask them questions about it. I don't understand some of them. Yeah, a lot of people want to know about lockdowns. I have Nancy. Will we ever get the border under control? And do you see a gathering of immigrant families being sent back to their original homesteads? Well, a couple years we might get it under control, but under the current supervision in this country, we won't. It goes right back to what I was talking about, the drugs and the crime. You know? I know quite a few people who I'm very close to who immigrated here, came from Mexico. They did it the legal way. Their children joined the military and fought for our country and served. And they were scared when they let the borders open. They said, "This is scary." I said, "Why?" They said, "Because being Mexican, American, we live in neighborhoods among other Mexicans. And when these people come in, they're sometimes the bad ones. You know? And we don't want the bad people coming in." There's also been incidents of people who have posed as immigrants who are actually very bad people coming over. Heard that in the news a couple times. All I can tell you is that I talk to a lot of people from other countries who are extremely bright, gifted. I'm not just talking about Mexico, I'm talking about everywhere else, who are very bright, gifted doctors, very hardworking people, very smart people in technology, computers, who should be a part of this country. And they've waited over 6, 7 years, and they still can't get in this legally in this country. And they could make an impact to help save lives here and to make our lives better. So the immigration system sucks. That's the most intelligent word I can say. It really does. I've seen heartbreaking stories of people from Europe and other places who they just, they want to make a difference, and they give them such a hard time. Let me see. So, as far as the 2024 election, I think as time goes on, we'll see if I'm right about that. And I may get more information as things begin. You know, it's kind of like when I'm investigating a crime. Well, I really can't investigate until the crime happens. So I'm comparing that to an election. A lot of people want to hear about the Idaho 4 tragedy. There's nothing much I can add that I haven't talked about, honestly. I just don't think they've got this right. And I think that there are some dangerous people still on the run. Just my opinion about it. Yep. I don't see a trial slated until February, actually. That's what I'm getting. I just don't think they have the right people here or the right evidence. But we will see. And future technology. Well, that goes into a lot of things. I mean, I think we're starting to scratch the surface of health technology and things like cancer, where radiation and the chemotherapy will be obsolete. I think it's going to be altering our DNA, altering our cell structure, kind of like reprogramming our systems, you know. I do believe there could also be some wonder drugs coming along too with that. I do see some advancements with diabetes and medicines, actually. The problem is the corporate world. The corporate world is making a mess of things as far as healthcare, technology. The corporate world is inhibiting us from moving forward, you know, in a big way. Anyway, thank you for your questions on Facebook. No, I did not get to all of them. We're talking future lockdowns, weather-related disasters, state of inflation. Inflation rates will go up, yes, and they won't go down. Economically speaking, next year, it's going to be a hard year in the world. I hope I'm wrong about it, but it's going to be a hard year. Things either go really bad or they go really well. In your lives, okay? If things are going good, watch out for some side turns or some detours in your life. But for the most part, people who had a very hard time this year are probably going to have a better time next year. I could say that as a whole. More positivity, you know, but the corruptness I would say with the ones in charge is very bad, very bad. And so I will keep you updated on next year. And I had one question that came in here. Still debating reincarnation through DNA. That's my question. DNA doesn't really have anything to do with it. The energy actually develops our body, and then the other ingredients are put together from the spirit that influences that body. Can I discuss the concept of karma? Well, I've heard different explanations of karma, and that our explanation of karma I've heard is not exactly accurate. But I don't think karma necessarily is something bad. I feel karma is your life, what your life has stood for, the testament of your life. You could do not so great things every day. That does not affect your karma. You know, you could say to yourself, oh my God, I ate so much chocolate. That karma is coming to me. No. There's an underlying karma that is part of your soul. Okay? So, it's the whole life that determines the outcome of your continued karma. You know. But sure, it is wonderful to think of karma as payback, you know. The guy who cut me off on the road the other day, what's his karma going to be, you know? That's a different, you know, that's the more popular belief of karma, you know? And it's sort of funny to talk about sometimes, but I do believe the real meaning of karma is where our energy goes, what it has grown from, what we have grown from, whom we've loved, you know. Nobody's perfect. Nobody is perfect. But my message to you right now is, if you're holding back on love, do not. And talking of karma, your destiny will be based on your love. So, that is my message to you right now. But I thank everybody for the questions. We will try to address more questions next time. But I have already gone past an hour and 14 minutes. Anyway, thank you for joining me. If you'd like a reading with me, my website is www.toddsegal, S-E-G-A-L, psychic.com. Okay. Go to my popular Facebook page. It's under Todd Segal, Psychic Detective. And It was very nice talking to you, and I will talk to you soon. Goodbye for now.